This is WNCT 9 on your side, News at 6.
Well, you remember back on Saturday when it just felt awful outside with all the excessive humidity that we had? None of that outside today. My goodness, what a beautiful day of weather it has been weather-wise. We were in the 70s this afternoon, but it's not just the comfortable temperatures. It's the fact that the dew points have been very low, so it's a dry atmosphere in place. Quite unusual for this time of year, but make no mistake, by the time we hit the end of this week, it's going to start to look and feel much more like June should feel this time of year. As we take a look at our local radar imagery, we don't have any big thunderstorms outside tonight. All the active weather is down south in the Gulf of Mexico with what is actually a new tropical depression. We'll talk about tropical depression number 3 coming up. We'll also talk about a return to summer-like temperatures for midweek. The longest-running newscast in the East starts now.
It's the day after violence followed a peaceful protest in uptown Greenville. We have live team coverage from the heart of the city straight ahead. Good evening, I'm Shayla Reeves, anchoring from the 9 on Your Side studio.
And I'm Ken Watling, live in uptown Greenville tonight. Thank you for joining us. We are devoting much of our newscast on this Monday to the protest in uptown Greenville and the aftermath. Greenville yesterday afternoon did see peaceful demonstrations focusing on the death of George Floyd, an unarmed black man who died at the hands of police in Minneapolis, Minnesota. But as we've seen in other cities across our nation over the weekend, those demonstrations morphed into hours of destruction and mayhem in uptown. We begin tonight with live team coverage. Our Madeline Ashley followed another protest today in Kinston, this one a peaceful demonstration. Our Ariana Kraft is at the Greenville Police Department with what police are saying about last night's events in uptown. But we begin with 9 on Your Side's Amber Joseph with what she's hearing from people who were in last night's Greenville protest. Amber.
Ken, people are hurt because of the chaos and violence that happened in uptown last night. The many people I spoke with, business owners, teachers, and students, say they agree with the protest and the message behind it, but not the destruction. Sunday night ending in turmoil and destruction. But before the violence, there was peace.
What democracy look like? This is what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy look like.
For the most part, it was a peaceful protest, but unfortunately, you have some people that they don't want to keep the peace.
Joe Young was part of Sunday's march.
I feel like I was inclined to just be out there and stand in solidarity for my people.
His people are those angry over the death of George Floyd, an unarmed black man killed at the hands of Minneapolis police. Sunday's Greenville protest saw people chanting, singing, and marching with signs. Brian Macy saw the march and what happened afterwards.
And then at some point, a flashbang grenade got tossed, and it went off, and then there was some canister spewing pink smoke going off, and all the kids started to run, toward First again, right? They're all anxious, and everybody's startled and scared. And then a line of police, baton line, they had their batons like kind of horizontal, and started pushing everybody forward.
They wanted to send a message. Now they're frustrated over how others tainted it.
Oh, I couldn't sleep last night. It was all just running through my head. I couldn't just second guessing what I did, worried, that about everything. It was just heartbreaking.
Young and his friends are pledging to keep hope alive peacefully.
They do. But I know for me, what I stand on is protesting peacefully and standing in solidarity for George Floyd and his family, Breonna Taylor and her family, Ahmaud Arbery, even Trayvon Martin, and all the various people that we've lost to the system and to injustices.
Protest organizers released a statement today thanking those who came out and marched peacefully. Now, they say they're not planning any more protests or marches at this time, but they do hope to make an official Black Lives Matter chapter here in Greenville. Amber Joseph, 9 on Your Side.
Amber, thank you. Tonight, expect increased police presence in uptown Greenville. City and county leaders are taking a look back at what happened last night and what's next for the district. 9 on Your Side's Ariana Kraft continues our team coverage live from Greenville Police Headquarters. Ariana, what are you hearing out there?
They say they're totaling up the damage to police vehicles, city buildings, and local businesses. They had 250 law officers from 24 different agencies from across the East come in to help stop the riots. Greenville Police Chief Mark Holtzman says they're asking the North Carolina National Guard to be on hand in case officers need backup. Yesterday afternoon's peaceful march turned violent when a small group began throwing rocks and other objects at buildings and at police and their vehicles. Police used tear gas to break up the crowds and get them out of the area. GPD expresses support for peaceful protests.
We're all about the First Amendment, and we'll be out there today or any day that people want to peacefully protest in our community. The difference between civil protest and a riot is when you're causing damage to property or injuring people, whether they're police officers or others.
Detectives are reviewing surveillance video trying to identify some of the people involved in causing the most damage. 2 adults were arrested, one on a weapons charge and another on a charge of failure to disperse. Right now there is a curfew in place from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. Greenville police would also like to say thank you to those protesters. Many of them stepped in front of officers to protect them from angry rioters. Live in Greenville, Ariana Kraft, 9 on your side.
Ariana, thank you. Greenville is not the only city in the East ordering people to stay home tonight. A curfew has also been issued for the town of Grifton. It runs from 9 o'clock tonight until 6 o'clock in the morning. A curfew is also in place for Goldsboro, and the cities of Washington and Wilson have issued curfews from 8 o'clock tonight until 6 o'clock in the morning. Right now, local leaders are reviewing their response to violence in Uptown and how it transformed from a peaceful protest. Leaders applauded the people who tried to hold a calm, respectful demonstration. They say the message from the earlier march was twisted by a group of destructive individuals. Pitt County Sheriff Paula Dance and Greenville Police Chief Mark Holtzman were prepared in case protests got out of hand. They called, quote, anyone with a badge and a gun to provide assistance. Sheriff Dance is urging people to protest peacefully.
When we're talking about getting into an area where it becomes violent, it then becomes illegal, and we will not support that. I would employ of you all who come out to protest to do so peacefully.
Sheriff Dance says her deputies are ready to respond to back up police during more disturbances.
The North Carolina National Guard is sending soldiers to support local police and deputies here in Greenville as well as in Raleigh and Fayetteville. The move comes after violence and destruction in the wake of the George Floyd killing in Minnesota. A spokesman for the North Carolina National Guard says they are no strangers to this type of operation. Their goal is to protect people and public property and to promote peaceful protests.
We have just an amazing group of citizen soldiers and airmen, many of whom were distributing food and protective personal equipment for COVID, and now help allow people to peacefully protest, but at the same time protect the lives and property of our citizens.
We have additional information on the National Guard's efforts in the wake of protests. You can head over to WNCT.com's online originals page.
Today, more Uptown business owners are discussing the impact of last night's protests. This includes the owner of Sup Dogs. A group of people jumped onto tables outside of Sup Dogs restaurant as customers were eating. The business soon closed following police orders to get visitors and workers to safety. Owner Brett Oliverio says his employees and customers support peaceful protests, but not violence.
Our business and everyone that works at Sup Dogs and all of our customers, everyone supports what the protest is about. But absolutely do we not support any violence of any kind, especially small businesses like ours that are just trying to grind every day to make it.
Sup Dogs cleaned up and is back open today. Workers at Christie's Europub say the protests did pass by their bar and restaurant. Employees say people only knocked down some parking cones.
And much of the damage from last night's protest across Greenville has already been cleaned up. People from across Pitt County and beyond came to Uptown Greenville this morning to help in that cleanup effort. Our Madison Forsey joins us now here in Uptown Greenville. And Madison, how are those business owners feeling today?
Well, they're still in shock today. They say that last night, really the only thing they could do was watch them or listen to the police scanner and scroll through social media. When they came down to Uptown this morning, they saw damage done to restaurants, businesses, and government buildings. But what they also saw were hundreds of volunteers ready to clean up Uptown.
Picking up the pieces.
It was really disheartening to actually kind of hear all that stuff that was going on.
From Sunday's riot.
You don't think that we're going to do this here in Greenville?
Protesters threw anything they could into businesses throughout Uptown Greenville, leaving the debris of anger and mayhem.
There's always going to be people that decide to destroy things, and there's always going to be people in the community that show up to fix it.
Then a different beat in the heart of Greenville.
We have had 200 community members come to say, I have a broom, I have a bucket, I have a tiny dustpan. They are bringing everything they can from home to help clean up this city that they know and love.
People giving time and labor to their beloved city.
Greenville is a big city, but it's a small enough community to where all of us business owners and local people know each other. And I think that's important.
One business owner understands the anger and heartbreak of protests, but not the destruction.
I agree that there needs to be change. I don't think that we need to destroy small businesses, like a business like mine or like my family's business, where we haven't made a profit since the quarantine started. You know, we haven't made a dime in 3 months.
Community cleanup efforts wrapped up just before noon today. One group even walked all the way down 5th Street to almost Memorial Boulevard to make sure they were cleaning up any trash from protesters. But the one thing that the business owners said is this: it means a lot to them to see the support and to let other people know that this kind of violent action isn't something that happens in Greenville.
A nice community effort here in Uptown. Madison, thank you.
Organizers of a protest this afternoon in Kinston say they made their message peacefully. They marched from the library to the courthouse, making sure their message of justice and equality was loud and clear. 9 on your side's Madeline Ashley continues our team coverage live in Kinston. Madeline, what can you tell us about this event?
Shayla, today's protest was peaceful. People came demanding justice not only for George Floyd, but every black person in America that has dealt with racism and police brutality. There were nearly 150 people who took part today. The 1-hour protest focused on issues not only here in the East, but across the country. Free bottled water was handed out by members of local churches during the march. Kinston activist Chris Suggs and Mayor Pro Tem Felicia Solomon addressed the crowd. Solomon urged everyone to use their eyes and to keep away from the violence and the pain happening around them, and to keep using their voice to fight back.
Police brutality, the innocent killing of young men and women of color, it's nothing new. The only difference is what? It is not recorded.
People in the crowd could be seen crying and embracing while Solomon was speaking. The protest ended about 2 hours ago. The party message was to leave peacefully and that rioting is not the answer. Live in Kinston, Madeline Ashley, 9 on your side.
Madeline, thank you. Leaders all across eastern North Carolina are speaking up about the protests happening not here just locally, but as well as across the country. New Bern's Police Chief Toussaint Summers Jr. gave his thoughts on the national call for peace.
It is a tragedy that we are at this point in our country. Obviously, what those officers did was wrong. There's no other way of saying it. It was inappropriate. It's not the way officers are trained to do. And I just pray that we don't paint everyone with that broad brush.
Coming up next, your complete First Alert 7-day forecast. We're going to continue to see a warm-up as we head into the middle of the week, and it's going to start to look and feel more like summer by the time we hit the end of this week. We'll talk about all the changes that lie ahead coming up next.
This is your WNCT-9 First Alert weather.
Outside today, a beautiful day of weather, a lot of sunshine, lower dew points, lower humidity. It really didn't feel much like June in this part of the state. We normally expect to see much more humid and hotter conditions. Those conditions will return later this week. Make no mistake. Let's take a look at what's going on outside at the moment. No heavy rain showing up in eastern North Carolina. Our local radar imagery is showing peaceful conditions. Here in Greenville, we're at 77, our dew point at 48, relative humidity at 36%, current air pressure 30.22 inches, current wind speed about 3 miles an hour. Hosky checking in at 72, Elizabeth City at 68, Hatteras at 69, Beaufort at 69, and Jacksonville at 74. You can see our current winds range from being calm and a few lucky spots out there to a little hint of a breeze coming out of the northeast along the North Carolina coast at this hour. Some showers and thunderstorms down in the Gulf of Mexico. They will not bother us. Many states looking at dry weather from the Carolinas all the way down into Georgia, out west towards Tennessee. High pressure is still in firm control. That keeps a lid on any widespread shower or thunderstorm development. But as the high begins to migrate offshore later this week, it will begin to wrap around and bring a return flow out of the south, and that will really warm our temperatures up quite a bit. We'll be talking about highs in the 90s once we hit Thursday into Friday of this week. Definitely looking and feeling more like June again. And of course, today is the first official day of Atlantic hurricane season. Don't tell that to the tropical season. It got off to an early start a couple of weeks ago. Of course, we've already had two named systems, Arthur and Bertha, affect the state of North Carolina. There's a new tropical depression that has now recently formed down in the Gulf of Mexico. Some of this energy is leftover moisture from what used to be a tropical system over in the Pacific Ocean. This system will continue to organize. It's fairly weak at the moment, but it has a broad shield of precipitation, and even some of the Gulf Coast states could see a little rainfall out of this thing. Max sustained winds 30 miles an hour. It's just kind of dawdling about in place over the next couple of days, so it is obviously too far away from North Carolina to cause us any direct influence here. Download our free First Alert mobile weather app. Stay on top of all the latest weather adjustments. Here's your forecast. Tonight, mostly clear. Overnight lows ranging from the upper 40s in Roanoke Rapids, mid-50s just about everywhere else. Mostly sunny for tomorrow with highs in the low to mid-80s and a southwest wind at 10 to 15 miles an hour. Your boating forecast, seas averaging 4 to 6 feet for the ocean, 2 to 3 foot for the sounds. Moderate chop for the lakes and rivers with a low to moderate rip current risk. Your inland First Alert 7-day forecast showing a lot of sunshine for Tuesday and Wednesday. Highs will be hotter in the 90s Wednesday into Thursday. Cold front comes in with a chance of rain and storms for Friday into Saturday and cools us down by a few degrees for the weekend, with highs returning to the mid-80s with overnight lows near 70. So things will be up and down for temperatures this week.
Sounds just like it. Thank you so much, Jerry. There was a different kind of gathering today in Jacksonville. The message of prayer and peace when we return.
This is WNCT 9 on your side, News at 6.
We have new details in the fight against COVID-19. The number of cases and deaths have increased across North Carolina over the weekend. The State Department of Health and Human Services reports more than 29,000 cases. Nearly 900 people have died as a result of the virus. Across the east, Duplin, Pitt, Lenoir, Craven, Bertie, Onslow, Greene, and Beaufort counties reported new cases. The death toll in Duplin and Craven counties increased. County health departments report more than 2,800 people have recovered in our region.
People in Jacksonville are sharing a different message today amid the protest and violence across our nation. They gathered today at the city's public safety building to send out that message. 9 on your side's Camila Barco continues our team coverage now with how police officers and a pastor are coming together.
Monday's service had one message, unity, but organizers made sure to talk about George Floyd and racism. Pastor Maurice Irvin from Catalyst Church held the prayer. Officers from Jacksonville Police Department and churchgoers were in attendance to hear it. But before his sermon, the Jacksonville Police Chief paid respect to George Floyd's family. He called his death a violation of department policy and human indecency. All city leaders and the pastors say the message is to create harmony.
And so right now what we're doing is we're really praying for wisdom on all sides.
We're here to pray for our community, and we're also to pray for healing, to bring people back together.
Chief Dinero says there have been conversations about their police force policy. He is confident his team has been able to prevent situations like Floyd's. Chief Dinero says he will work with protesters to make sure any future demonstrations in Jacksonville are safe. At the Public Safety Building, Camila Barco, 9 on your side.
Ahead at 6, Sports Director Brian Bailey is back. He's got a look at your Monday sports after this break.
I'm Brian Bailey with your Monday Sports, and we start with some sad news. Former East Carolina and Auburn coach Pat Dye has died at the age of 80. Dye is a 3-time SEC Coach of the Year. He was the 1983 National Coach of the Year. In 6 seasons at East Carolina, he was 48-18-1. In 2005, he was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame, and in 2006, he was inducted into the East Carolina Hall of Fame. The last time I had a chance to see Coach Dye was back in 2014 for the East Carolina-North Carolina football game at Dowdy-Ficklin Stadium. Coach Dye was a guest of then head coach Ruffin McNeil at East Carolina for the Pirates and the Tar Heels that afternoon at Dowdy-Ficklin Stadium. In NASCAR, Chase Elliott seems to always be in the middle of things late in the race. Here we go to Bristol, and Elliott gets into Joey Logano late, and that makes Brad Keselowski your race winner. Keselowski joked that maybe he needed to head to Vegas with all that love.
Yeah, just a wild day. One of those days that, you look at and you think of as going back and being a part of Bristol lore for a long time to come. And I'm glad we were able to win it. But, geez, so much beating and banging. Oh, my goodness.
On the high school ranks, Aiden Griffin announced a pair of socially distanced signings today. Lexi Bryant will head to Fayetteville State for volleyball, and Landon Stocks will head to Doane University to wrestle. Time now for our nightly feature. It's our play of the day, our Bailey's Best, and it comes to us tonight from the Diamond. On this day in 2009, Devin Harris played Superman in leading the Pirates to an NCAA regional championship over South Carolina. Harris hit a 3-run home run to tie the game late, and then drove in the game winner to send the Pirates to the Super Regionals in the NCAA baseball tournament. It's our play of the day. It's our Bailey's Best. I'm Brian Bailey.
Quick check of that Inland First Alert 7-day forecast. Look at all that sunshine for Tuesday. We'll be in the low 80s into the 90s for Wednesday, mid-90s on Thursday. Chance of rain and storms increasing by Friday and Saturday as a cold front moves in. That cold front will be strong enough to knock a few degrees off our temperatures for the upcoming weekend, but it is June. You can't really get used to the 70s that we saw outside today. That's unusual for this time of year for sure, but we'll be correcting that, more summer-like for the balance of the week.
Almost like we're flipping a switch when we get to Wednesday.
Very well put.
Thank you so much, Jerry. Of course, we'll have more news coming up tonight at 11. We hope to see you then. Have a great night, everyone.